Yes, and poor old Vino's going to have to look for something special. It won't be a chance to improve on the time gaps now, because this, on stage number 6, is very definitely a race for the sprinters. It takes us through to nearly 900 kilometres covered in this opening 6 days of racing.
Very flat course, 177 kilometres on the road to Leon, and certainly, as always in the Tour of Spain, Phil, the kind of stage where the race will be dominated by a breakaway, but I'm pretty sure that it'll all come back together at the end.
And by the way, Thor Hushovd has kept his lead, though, in the points competition, while De Luca has also claimed the lead in the King of the Mountains after that great ride yesterday. 3 kilometres to go, the field virtually all together. It was the subject of a long breakaway by a rider from Bouygues Telecom, Mathieu Claude. He's caught, he got a lead of over 10 minutes, and it's now going to be down to the sprinters again.
Well, Liquigas pulling off there. They're trying to keep their man Paolini up to the front end of the main field. There is Eric Zabel. This is a good move forward here. That's Stuart O'Grady. O'Grady has been very consistent since the start of the Vuelta, and he's a man I would have to say, Phil, could be a serious challenger at the World Championships, especially after the bad start he had to the year with that crash in the Tirreno Adriatico.
Well, one sprinter who won't win today, he was eliminated. Robbie McEwen on his way home. Never had his heart in it, I don't think, as he's returned home to Belgium, and it looks now as though Eric Zabel is being lined up once again for a crack at the stage win. He's got the bait now because he's got one under his belt.
Well, pale blue jerseys of Team Milram all over the front end of the main field, and how about that for a bit of speed? We're looking at probably 40 miles an hour, 60 kilometres an hour as they come around these corners. Don't worry about it. These riders are well strapped in for the ride right now as they course into town here. You can see the main field starting to stretch out. Somebody took a little bit of a bend around there, but he's safely around that obstacle. You've got to be very attentive. Now look at this. This is a big organised chase.
The Milram lead out. They seem to have got it right at last here. Pataki not at the front. He's just in front of Zabel at the moment. No sign of the golden jersey. He's not a sprinter, De Luca. He's also not in danger of losing that jersey today either. Here comes the charge with David Miller now, and guess who's on his wheel there? That's Ventoso, being brought up for another crack at a stage win.
Well, Miller's doing a lot of work for the team here, certainly playing the team player. He'll have a crack himself in one of the individual time trials in the latter part of the Vuelta a España. There you can see Quick Step over on the right-hand side in the darker blue jersey with the white bands over it. They are trying to get their man Paolo Bettini up one more time, but it's David Miller all over the front end of the main field, and good job that policeman. I tell you what, that's not a job I would like.
No, Miller's riding simply superbly here. He's gifted with his terrific turn of speed. Remember, he was the winner of the World Time Trial Championship, but later on confessed to using drugs. It cost him 2 years of his career. Now he's under 1 kilometre to go, trying to get Ventoso out for the lead out. But they've got to watch out. Team Milram are firing here now, as they've got their man in the right position, Eric Zabel, or will it be Alessandro Pataki? Look at the gaps in that peloton. It's really been caused by the high-speed riding of David Miller.
Well, Miller's still on the front there in the yellow jersey. All he's thinking about now is keeping this line stretched out.
But where's Ventoso?
No
his team man's got. He's just realised it.
Yep.
He thought Ventoso was still on his wheel and he'd lost it. Miller's now freewheeling. He's out of it on the far side of the road. Milram now looking for the move here, and it is Pataki and Zabel lining up. Zabel's right in the wheel there now. Pataki goes. Pataki launching Zabel. Watch out for the charge here by the Lampre team, because Danilo Napolitano is a little bit of a rock and roll sprinter, but he's trying to break in, and the Telecom rider, in fact, is Andre Gripel, who's trying to come through on the right here, and Hushovd has got into the mix as well. He's on the far right in the leader's jersey of points, and is this the win for Hushovd? On the far left was Zabel, on the right I think it's Hushovd. He's got it at last.
And you know who was right up there as well was Alessandro Pataki. He was about third or fourth. He was over on the left-hand side there. That is the best performance he's had on his comeback trail.
It was, because that was a very rapid approach to the line. Miller went too quick for Ventoso, blew him clean away. Well, he's had 3 second places. I think he's actually celebrating a victory here. We'll get another look at that, I'm sure.
Strange jersey there as well, the white jersey with blue spots, and that is the points jersey here at the Vuelta a España. Look at the acceleration, turbos kicking in there. Zabel trying to come around the outside, and over on the right-hand side there is Alessandro Pataki. Good to see him back at the front in the sprints.
Well, it was a very, very close finish here, but no doubt in my mind the rider on the far right has got the better. A really good result there for Andre Gripel of T-Mobile. Most unusual man for us for the sprints, and Pataki, you're right, far left is in the mix. Good win for him. Well, maximum points in the points competition. The golden jersey may be gone for keeps, but this is the one he's aiming for now to hold all the way to Madrid, and that's the victory today for the Norwegian.
Well, it's that lunge for the line that gives it the victory by about half a wheel, but that's good enough for Thor Hushovd, and he'll be very happy with that.
There's confirmed Agricole, Zabel, Pataki, the 2 Milram boys, having a good result today. Napolitano sprinting very well for Lamprey. He's their sprinter in 5th place. Doesn't look like we're going to show you any more of the result today, but I can tell you Luca Paolini was 7th and Stuart O'Grady got 8th. And Smiles now, he's not on the stage for a golden jersey, but he's on the stage as stage winner, and that's a great feeling. And Danilo De Luca keeps his lead here by those scant 4 seconds over Brakovic. They didn't bother to race today, they just came home in the peloton, as did all of the men who triumphed at the mountain yesterday. And somewhere down these top 10, I think we could be looking at the future winner of this year's race.
Well, there he is, Danilo De Luca, looking very comfortable. Easy day in the saddle for him. Basically, he just had to keep a very close eye on everybody else. And it's probably going to change again tomorrow, because he'll have to come up another little bit of a hilly climb on tomorrow's stage.
Yeah, that's about right. Paul, stage 7. In fact, it's up to the Alto here at the finishing line. It's a mountain we don't know a lot about. It's only been climbed once before, but it could give us a new race leader here.
Well, it could. The last time this route, the exact same route, was actually ridden was 1997, and the winner on that occasion was Roberto Heras at the top of this very difficult climb to Morodero. And I tell you what, I think there's going to be a serious sort-out. Fairly undulating to begin with, and a fairly short course as well, 154 kilometres, just inside of 100 miles. So I would think we'll see a very aggressive race.
Always a woody short stages, because they tend to be fast and furious even when there is a mountain top finish. There's the stats of the final climb up to El Merodero. It's nearly 17 kilometres to the summit. It's 18 kilometres if we start it right down from the bottom there. It takes us up to over 1,800 metres.
But look at the start of the climb. 12% in the first kilometre, 15% in the second kilometre, and then a mere average of 10% for the rest. Ouch.
Well, we're looking at David Loosely here, and I think he's the lone survivor now. It was a 3-man breakaway. It did get quite a lead. It went very early on, and Loosely, riding for Lamprey these days, is the only man left at the front, and the peloton are closing in. We're on the lower foothills of the finishing climb.
Yep, he's been leading the race. They had a maximum advantage at one stage of over 11.5 minutes. A little bit of freedom given to the riders, but I think everybody realising that big, massive advantages could get wiped out on this final climb of the day. He's still riding fairly well, Loosely, but in the main field behind, they're starting to really pick it up a little bit. At 3 minutes and 30 seconds is a group containing Alexander Vinokourov, and 26 seconds behind that is the group of the leader, Danilo De Luca, and all of the other favourites.
I wonder if Vinokourov's a little bit frightened of the finish today after what happened to him on that first mountain climb up to Egoi, because he's making sure he's getting a better crack at the finishing climb this time.
Well, this is a group of Alexander Vinokourov. I'm trying to see if I can spot Vinokourov. He's probably sitting a little bit further back here, but you can see behind the long convoy of cars, this climb already in the first part is starting to really cause a lot of damage in the front end of the main field.
Well, De Luca isn't that far off the pace at the moment. Remember, he's going to keep an eye on Brakovic. There's only a 4-second margin between the two, and that really would be a coup if Brakovic could find himself in the golden jersey. The Grupo de Líder, and that contains the yellow jersey, or the golden jersey. Forgive me if I slip back to the yellow occasionally, but they're very insistent this one is in gold.
Well, Valverde's got his men all over the front end of the main field. He's not giving out any presents at all. I think he would like to get himself the stage victory at the end of the stage. Again, he's a very good finisher when it comes to the top of big mountain passes. That gives us an idea of what the race is looking like. David Loosely around about 3.5 minutes in front. That little group of riders just in front, surrounded by an armada of motorbikes, is the group containing Alexander Vinokourov. The group behind there is the group with the majority of the leaders. But Phil, I tell you what, there are more motorbikes on the Tour of Spain than I think any other bike race in the world.
It is. Here's Loosely. Now look at the narrow approach here. Good job the field is thinning out a bit. There's 9 riders in that group surrounding Alexander Vinokourov. And you know, this could be a return for Alexander, because he's still smarting after losing over 2 minutes. And I felt out of the hunt for this year's Vuelta España on day 1 in the mountains. Inside 10 kilometres to go. David Loosely's been out front so long now, surely his legs can't handle him all the way.
Well, this is Alexander Vinokourov, and he's certainly seen the advantage here this afternoon. Leader of Team Astana, looking at a chance to try and get back a little bit of time that he lost rather precariously on the first mountain top finish, when he lost himself over 2 minutes, and any hope at all of keeping a high finish in the overall classification. Once again, that magnificent vista in the backdrop is so reminiscent of this Vuelta a España.
Well, it's beautiful, and we're still in very nice weather here. We haven't got the torrid heat of the far south, but it is still very, very warm, and this mountain not helping today. You don't see the spectators you see in the likes of the Tour de France, but this is a very good bike race, and I suppose benefited from the arrival of the Pro Tour, because now you're guaranteed all of the top teams in the Vuelta a España, not necessarily all of the top riders.
But also a lot of riders and a lot of teams in the past have used the Vuelta a España, which was moved to the end of the season as preparation for the end of season one-day classics, and of course the most important of all of those is the World Championships, which is 2 weeks after the end of this race.
Now we've got this field so well split up now, but Vinokourov is breaking up that group. And remember that De Luca is not part of those riders at the moment. This is loosely. I think the flag is up. I think he's about to be picked up here.
Oh, he does not look good at all. He's now starting to get into the very difficult part of this climb. Let's not forget it's an 18-kilometre ascension from the plateau below to the top, and the maximum at around about 1,750 metres in altitude. Here we're going through a part where the gradient is 10%.
Yes, very, very difficult after a tough day, especially if you've been leading the race as he was. He was with Laszlo Bedrogi and Staff Shearlinks at one stage, but got rid of those towards the start of this climb. They've gone right through the groups now. A little bit of word of help there from the Lampre team management. There's the lonely journey, and way in the distance is the finishing line. There's still a long way to climb.
This goes to show how you can lose so much energy and so much time in the final few kilometres of a race, a mountaintop finish like this. He's still holding on to around about 3 minutes advantage over Alexander Vinokourov, and Valverde, I think, has got Vinokourov's group pegged because they're at around about 17 seconds.
It's a big test, of course, for De Luca, and he's closing up on that Valverde group. We haven't seen too much of him, but he has closed the gap a little bit. There's the 9 riders who are under the escort of Valverde and, of course, Alexander Vinokourov, trying to recuperate some of his lost time. If he can finish in this group today, he will accelerate up the overall classification, but he won't gain time, of course, on Valverde, who's down there.
Well, the thing about Alexander Vinokourov, Phil, is he's the kind of rider who really all of a sudden doesn't care. He doesn't ride sensibly. He will take any opportunity. If he thinks he's lost any chance of winning the Vuelta a España, he will go out and try and win as many individual stages as possible.
What a delightful village this is as we approach towards the summit of the climb. Very cold here in the winter, but right now, as we head towards the winter, this is the heat of the Tour of Spain.
Well, this is Staff Shearlinks. He's actually coming back into the group.
Oh,
he was in that leading group.
So they picked him up just now.
Well, he's going to have a quick look at his teammate there and say, ciao for now, I'll see you a bit later on, son.
Well, the other man in that group was Laszlo Bedrogi. I'm not sure, we haven't seen hide nor hair of him all day since we came on air. The group 2 minutes 50, and still a very defined piece of riding. I'd like to see just how hard that group is riding. Just lost a couple of seconds, the group of Danilo De Luca, and I bet it's De Luca who's having to do the work himself in that group.
Well, you can see on the front of the group here now the dark black jerseys of Il Baleares, que España. There's the white jersey of Alejandro Valverde. Now, most riders, unless they know the person handing up a bottle on a mountain like this, they will not drink that water because you never know what could be in it if it's come from a mountain stream, and they will usually use that water just to pour it over themselves to keep themselves nice and cool. Now, there's been a little bit of a sort out here. There's Danilo De Luca. He's in the group still with Alejandro Valverde and the rest, so it's still just off the front, the group of 8 or 9 riders with Alexander Vinokourov.
So Vinokourov actually is gaining that time, a few seconds, so be it. This just slipping off the back is Paulinho, who's had a good tour so far. Meanwhile, back at the front, the lone leader is loosely. It's David Arroyo, again, the faithful David Arroyo, who's doing the pacemaking for Valverde back there in that group.
Yeah, it's very sad to see a bike rider when you see a top professional athlete riding with a style like this, because you know the lights have pretty much gone out, and when he looks up above him there and sees that sign, 9 kilometres to go, he knows that on a flat stage that would probably take around about 9 minutes. Unfortunately, on a mountaintop finish like this, it's pretty close to half an hour.
Well, we're locking in on the face here of the golden jersey of De Luca. He got it, now he's having to pay the heavy price of defending it. And judging by his face here, I think if we pan round, he might be losing the wheel here of that group. He's distinctly under pressure. Not a very low gear he's riding either. In fact, he is losing the wheel here.
Well, he's got to try and stay in contact because all of those riders in front of him are above him, or behind him in the overall classification. He just needs to stay on the wheel if he can. And in fact, the man who could be the serious beneficiary of this, Phil, is Brakovic, because he's only 4 seconds behind Danilo De Luca in the overall standings this morning.
Well, Johan Brunel has certainly got himself a fine if that is the case. Just slipping away there is Jesus Hernandez from the relaxed team as well. But Brakovic, for the moment at least, is still in this group. 4 seconds is all he requires at the top of the hill. There are bonuses as well.
Well, there you can see.
And there he is. No, that's Beltran. That's Beltran with him and Vinokourov. But Brakovic is here somewhere.
Well, this is a nice move, actually, for tricky Beltran, because he's a man who, long-term, I think, for Team Discovery Channel, is the man that could probably get himself onto the podium. That's the face of Alejandro Valverde, concentrated, just riding himself into this race, having a look up the road to see what the gap is between himself and Alexander Vinokourov, letting his team do the work. The team over the last couple of seasons have really built themselves around here.
Still Arroyo setting the pace at the front for Case Dapon, always checking around to make sure that Valverde is not hurting him too much. It looks like they might be going under that 9-kilometre banner just now. This is the group which is really very much important now, and just tagged on the back here, just looking for him just now, but this is Schmid, the Polish rider on Lamprey. He is also cracked now.
Well, there's a lot of pressure coming on these riders, and look at that time gap as they went under 9 kilometres to go. The poor old leader, Losley, has lost himself already a minute in the space of 1 kilometre of riding.
It's the in-fight. They'll catch him, but not as if they're chasing him. They'll catch him. This is Valverde, is it?
Yep, Valverde's off. He's got Andrei Koshekin on his wheel. He said, that's enough for Alexander Vinokourov. I think I'll take off myself and match this race down. He's a fabulous rider, this Alejandro Valverde. He really is, I think, one day going to be the winner of a Grand Tour. He'd like it to be the Tour de France. He was aiming for that this year, but crashed out very early on, and he's ridden across that gap as if it was nothing.
That's cool bike riding. And he's got Koshekin with him here, which means that the Worth team, or Astana team as they're called now, has got themselves 2 boys at the front.
Look at this. This is confidence straight up to the front. That's the way to quash the psychological blow.
Sastra's coming.
Yep, he's riding across the gap too, just a little bit further up.
Not quite as fluidly, though. He's still struggling, I think.
Well, he's had a hard season. Let's not forget he was boosted to the position of team leader during the Tour de France, and right now what he's got to do is try and assume the mantle as leader here of Team CSC.
And number 93 there, that's the Rise Muscatel Scardi, is Mayo. Now, isn't that interesting? Both Mayo and Vinokourov having much better rides on this mountain today.
Well, there's Alejandro Valverde. Tricky Beltran coming up alongside him, and the rider who's moved in there for Team Cofidis is Luis Perez, a man who's always ridden well in the Vuelta a España. Looking over his shoulder, Valverde wants a bit of help from Beltran, and Beltran says, nah, sorry mate, it's up to you.
Well, I haven't seen Brakovic, but we're looking for him. I think he's in this group somewhere.
I have a feeling he might be in this group. I am absolutely certain that I saw the dark blue jersey of Team Discovery Channel just a little while ago. There you can see Sastra. This is Schmidt coming up, the Polish rider on Team Lamprey.
Well, Brakovic's number, if you spot it before we do, is 73. And this is a very compact group now, which is strengthened with the arrival of the chase group. And just behind them, remember, is the golden jersey of De Luca. He hasn't given up all hope yet. We've gone back up to the leader here, David Loosely. 8 kilometres to go. The clock starts now. I think we're going to see a dramatic reduction. He doesn't look to be climbing that quickly at all. But, you know, he's been out so far ahead. I think 12:23 was the biggest gap they gave him on the road. And now he's just a couple of minutes ahead. Drinks required, I think.
Certainly looking for some water to keep himself cooled down. Those water-cooled engines are certainly some of the best engines we've got out here, and especially with these temperatures soaring to 30 degrees Celsius. It's a little bit warm for the guys. Valverde looking calm, but the pace has actually gone off a fraction here, Phil, because 1 or 2 riders are managing to recover and come back from the rear.
Yes, but you know, we had a good look there. Certainly Brakovic was not in that group. It's only Beltran at the moment, and also gone from that group we've seen is the golden jersey. There could be a few new candidates for the win and the golden jersey by the end of today.
Well, that's Luis Perez now. Team Cofidis, red, white and blue on the front of the group. He's setting the pace, trying to keep this group together, thinking about the possibility of moving up a little bit higher in the overall classification. Mayo, amazingly, a couple of days ago was almost off the back of the race by 3 minutes. Today he's riding at the front with all the heads of state.
Well, Luis Perez has always been a man for the Vuelta a España, really throughout the 2000 decade. He was 14th in 01, 22nd in 02. He was 10th and won a stage in 03. He was 9th in 04. So he is a man that enjoys and always seems to ride well in the Vuelta a España. Isn't that a great picture?
Well, it is, unless you're a professional cyclist, because you look down at that as a professional cyclist, I think you're going to get yourself a little bit of indigestion. It's a long way to go. It's a long drag, and once they get out of the trees here, they will be able to see the standalone leader loosely, and they will be able to judge their effort, because I think now, Phil, these riders now know they can pull that man back anytime they want to.
Now this is swelling all the time. I'm not sure whether the golden jersey isn't tacking onto the back. We need to get down to the back of this group now as we cut back here, because this field is building all the time. Rodriguez is the other man on Castapern. For the moment, David Arroyo has dropped back into the pack, but he's still in this leading group as long as we know. Perez there attempting to have a drink, and look at that gap. It's tumbled down. They must be approaching on 8 kilometres to go at 1:27.
Well, that Joaquin Rodriguez had a very good start to the year. He was right up there in Paris-Nice, finished second to Floyd Landis and won himself a stage as well. But there you can see Valverde, I think, has got this pretty much in control. He'll be looking to try and get himself the win. I'm looking down the line there to see if I can see Danilo De Luca. From this angle, it's a little bit difficult to see whether that yellow jersey there was in fact the golden jersey or whether it was a rider from Saunier Duval.
It could well be Saunier Duval. Looks as though it might well have a bit of red on it. But this is the breakaway group now from where surely we're going to see the future winner of the Vuelta a España come from. Saunier Duval it is. We've got a better shot of it there. But the man setting the pace is Rodriguez, followed by Valverde. Then it's Mayo, very surprisingly now sitting there in third wheel.
Well, Mayo could create a bit of a surprise if he's having a good day and takes off towards the summit of this climb. He's the kind of rider who could spoil the party for the men who've got the rapid acceleration like Alejandro Valverde, who looks pretty comfortable to me, Phil, in second place there. There is Tricky Beltran. And this is Danilo De Luca now. I'm not sure where he is at the moment. Bike number 3 you can see indicated, so that means that Danilo De Luca is not with that group of leaders unless he's trying to pull himself back into the race here.
Well, he's having to do all of the pacemaking. It's always the case. You're the man in the hot seat. Nobody's going to help you. You got the jersey. You defend it. And he's losing ground now. He's gone back to 1:04 from Valverde group. That's huge. What we need to know is the word about Brakovic, because he could have been the next candidate for yellow. We might be looking elsewhere now. It looks as though Valverde is in quite a lot of trouble now, and he's being left to do all of the work.
Well, Danilo De Luca has just got to ride himself into this race now. I think he realises the yellow jersey, the golden jersey, is going to slip off his shoulders. Well, there is number 73.
Well, that's the man. That's Brakovic.
That's the man we've been looking for.
Where did he come from?
I don't know. I never saw him at all in this group, but he's looking fairly comfortable.
It is 73, it's not 75, is it?
Difficult to see from this altitude.
I don't think Stein de Volder would be up here. It's got to be 73, and he's looking around here. I think he's got to be ahead.
No, that is Stein de Volder.
Is he Stein de Volder?
Yeah, it is. This is amazing, because he's a Belgian rider better renowned for the flat stages, and that's a bit of a surprise to see him riding at the front.
Our cameras at the moment are going up and down the mountain. It's where they find the camera, they show us the group, but we're not exactly sure where all these groups are being placed on this climb at the moment. There's no doubt where this group is. 7 kilometres to go. They are the lead chase group. At approximately 1:17 now on
I've just
loosely.
figured it out, Phil. I'm sorry about that. He's wearing the white jersey as the best young rider. There is Brakovic.
Of course, and he is in the group. Yeah. And so he is the leader of the Tour right now. And what a coup that would be for this man.
Yes, certainly would. And he's a very young rider, very talented rider. And he caught me out a little bit there. Vladimir Karpit's coming up the outside, formerly the best young rider in the Tour de France a number of years ago. He's moving up to the front. Case d'Epargne, he'll be looking after his man, Alejandro Valverde. But this is now becoming, Phil, a very select group, and a lot of riders still looking for a little bit of water.
Well, there's 2 white jerseys in there, the other one being worn by the Pro Tour leader, Valverde. I'd seen the 2 white jerseys, and I was trying to work out who the other one was. We know now it is Jarej Brakovic, the new man on the block. He came to Discovery Channel midway through last year, and he's never won a pro bike race, but you know he could be pulling on his first leader's jersey by the end of this day, because he's over a minute ahead now of the leader, De Luca.
Well, it's a very interesting situation now, because they've got rid of Danilo De Luca. Alejandro Valverde will try and consolidate, and it's interesting and nice to see that Alexander Vinokourov has made a little bit of a comeback in the Vuelta a España, because he'll actually move up with a ride like this afternoon and could well see himself tipping into the top 10 at the end of the day.
I've got to say that David Loosely is doing a tremendous ride here. These boys aren't really chasing him. They're infighting, but 1:13, he's hanging in there. He's not going to win the stage. It's not possible. But he's being really showing us a great show of defiance. These are the chasers. Arroyo and Rodriguez are the chosen pacemakers for Alejandro Valverde. And interestingly enough, none of the other teams participating at all in the chase here, which I suppose if you've got 3 from Crédit, you're not going to.
Well, I think also everybody realises
somebody else is going now.
Everybody's looking as if they're having a little bit of a hard time here, but I think everybody realises, Phil, that Alejandro Valverde is now starting to look like the contender for the Vuelta a España. So they're going to say, you guys carry on, you do the work. If you want to win this race, you have to take the responsibility of the chase. Danilo De Luca not having a good day.
No, Paulinho is not going to give him any help either. He's going to sit there because he's very happy with the situation with Vinokourov rather up front. Here's another look at Loosely. Doing one of the rides of his life as a pro, this young man. He's not a big hitter at all, but he's been out front all day today and he's snatching all the publicity.
Well, that's what these riders are facing up to. There is the front end of the race. Just coming around the corner there, the lone leader, David Loosely, just supported by the neutral service car. But as we speak, they're actually moving cars out of that gap, and that's always a bad sign when you're a professional bike rider. At 6 kilometres to go.
And he's never won a pro bike race. It ain't going to change today, I'm afraid, but he's still got a little bit of air between him and that chase group, which is coming up, picking up the tempo all the time. Much different climb this to the Egoi the other week, or the other day rather, because it's got his flat patches. He's through the steep parts now. 5.5 kilometres left to go. Desperate. He was 3 minutes at 10. He's now just over 1 minute at 5.
Just has to try and concentrate, try and find a rhythm that's comfortable for himself, but he knows behind the Armada are starting to pick up the pace. This is now Vladimir Karpets on the front. They're at 1 minute now, Phil, just going inside of the 1 minute margin. That man now knows it's going to be almost impossible for him to win the stage. This is Vinokourov. He's riding a lot better today, a lot more confidently, and I think he'll be happy to see that he's now riding with the heads of state of this race, and he'll look to try and move up into the top 10 at the end of the day. Not what he was looking for at the start of the Vuelta, but it's better than nothing.
Well, like with Mayo, this hill with its little bit of plateaus has suited him a lot better. And Vinokourov has come back here, but he's not gaining any of that lost 2 minutes on his main rivals because they're all alongside him. He is pulling back, of course, heavily on Danilo De Luca. And we could even see Vinokourov in the top 5 or 6 position by the end of the day, even though the time gaps will still be large. 3rd place, still Valverde. 4th place, notably, was Brakovic. And he knows the next golden jersey awaits.
Well, takes a few risks going around this corner. The lone leader now at just 5 kilometres to go. He's taking advantage of the slightly downhill part of this hill. Looks across there. He's looking across to try and judge what the gap is between himself and that leading group. He will have the information. The team manager will have pumped it through to him on the race radio that he has in his ear to give him an idea just exactly whether or not he's going to survive. This will be good for him. This will give him a brief respite. But sadly for him, the final 4.5 kilometres, Phil, are straight up to the top.
Well, by the end of this day, 1/3 of the Vuelta will be underneath the bike wheels, and believe me, the hardest sections still lie ahead of the race. And of course the crucial races against the watch too. The gaps are there, but in fact it looks to me as though De Luca's group is coming back to the leaders.
Yeah, he's recovering. He's pulled himself back to around about 51 seconds. It's very important never to give up, especially when you're the overall leader of the race. If you remember last year in the Vuelta a España, in the Giro d'Italia, Paolo Salvadelli was the leader on the penultimate day, and he actually just sat up on the climbs because he knew he couldn't follow the pace of the better climbers. But he took advantage of the descents to pull himself back into the race, and that paid for him on that occasion.
Well, just sitting there at the back is Gomez Marchante, again the man for the Vuelta. He was the man we thought was the race leader in the yellow colours of Sonia Duval. And about 16 riders have come into that group now, so they've been coming up from the back and they've been getting rid of Danilo De Luca. They were probably the group that De Luca was originally with and couldn't hang on to.
Well, no, this is starting to look like a very large group, and that would indicate that they're not really chasing full on here, and that could give Danilo De Luca the chance to get himself back in, especially in this section of the climb.
It's all being left to the team being seen as having the likely winner on it, and that's the team of Crédit. And they've got at least 3 riders up here. You saw Vladimir Karpets, Paul. Well, he wasn't here originally, so he's obviously just come up to the leaders and gone straight to the front. So they've got 3 very good pacemakers now, as well as Valverde up here. There's De Luca. He's down at the back there, always being trailed by Paulinho, I think it is. It could be a Discovery Channel ride on his back wheel just at the moment. and the gaps are holding. 56 to the leader and an additional 55 to the group we're looking at right now. No, it was Paulinho on the front.
Well, Danilo De Luca is still keeping himself in with a chance of staying up in the top 10 at the end of the day, but unless he can pull himself back to that group and Brakovic, he's going to lose the golden jersey. And he won't get very much help at all in this group because it's a small group, but actually looking over the road there, Phil, he will get a little bit of a boost to his morale because he can see the team cars, and if he can just get himself to the back of those team cars, he might get himself into this race.
This is going to be a difficult one now for the race referees to sort these following cars out, because a very tricky corner that, and now they're going downhill briefly before they climb again. They need to watch out now that these riders don't get lost in amongst those team cars. We're inside a minute. That might well call them out of there shortly, because that's an unfair advantage. Still the steady pacemaking by Cees Dapan. Very confident that Valverde might finish the day off with a stage win as well. I don't think he can do much about the yellow jersey, unless, of course, he can get rid of Brakovic. Then it would all swing round a little bit. Here's our man at the front, still living in hope, looking pretty cool, doesn't look too worn out, but look over your left shoulder, David, you're going to see the chase.
Well, there they are, still the black jerseys on the front of Cees Dapan, Lille Baleares. This group has certainly got a lot bigger over the last few kilometres, as we now start to look at the group of Alejandro Valverde. He has got himself about 55 seconds over Danilo De Luca, who I think now, Phil, that it's starting to tip up again, will have a little bit of difficulty getting himself into a comfortable rhythm. Now this looks like Iban Mayo's decided he's going for it.
Well, that's a quick reaction. Valverde was waiting for somebody to lift up the action. Now he's immediately reacted, and so too, I think it's Rodriguez has gone with him there to jump onto him. Now that'll cause a reshuffling, and it'll cause a very quick capture of David Loosely. Well, Iban Mayo, he was down and out one day, he looks to be all firing again the next.
Incredible. I think he is a man on a mission here, Phil, at the Vuelta to try and look for a new team for next year, because I know the team are definitely not very happy with him at all because of his performances in races like the Tour de France and here the Tour of Spain. He was regarded as a pre-race favourite, but we never know how he's going to come out and ride. But obviously Valverde was attentive. This is the face of Danilo De Luca, and in fact he's gone out a lot further now. If you look at that, 1 minute and 30 seconds
acceleration,
I think he's cracked.
That acceleration just opened the gaps. De Luca's on his limit here. There goes Brakovic after the breakaway. That man knows he's got a golden jersey on the line. He's also riding well. Valverde's up there. Brakovic tacks on. Well, Brakovic, you know, is only 22 and a half years of age, this man. His career's barely started, and he's riding into a golden jersey by the end of the day. I don't know what Johan Brunel will think. Surely they won't try to defend it for him because he's so young, but he's got class.
Well, the thing about Johan Brunel, he's a very clever tactician. He will know exactly what to do to keep his man calm and collected in a situation like this. But Alejandro Valverde now has said, right, guys, I think I'd like this stage here this afternoon. And there's a move by Beltran.
Tricky Beltran. Now, is that a wise move? Is he going to damage here the possibility of the golden jersey for his teammate? Because Valverde's right onto his wheel, and if he sees him, really he should sit up.
Well, he's done that. He's obviously listening to our commentary, and he's decided he wants to try and make sure that he can get his man into the golden jersey at the end of the day. 16 mere seconds is the advantage of Loosely very shortly, for with these kind of accelerations, that young man from Switzerland is going to be back in the fold. But the action is at the front of this group. Valverde is all over this one this afternoon, and you can see the damage it's already done to that large group.
Well, expect to see David Loosely any set. Oh, there he is, as they're going up the climb, and behind the motorbikes, there's the first advanced scout. I think it's Valverde again, launched another attack back there. He's going to be up here very, very quickly now. I feel sorry for David Loosely. He's had a terrific day today in the Vuelta a España. Fully deserves the victory, and they're going to catch him. That's really sad, you know. And this is Brakovic, and I don't believe this because that's Loosely. This is Brakovic, and gold awaits.
Well, this man is certainly riding superbly, and that is obviously a move that came across the airways from Johan Brunel. But here is Alexander Vinokourov coming across the gap as well. But where is Alejandro Valverde?
Well, this is tremendous now, and in fact Vinokourov is trying to get real time back now to make up for the 2+ minutes he lost a few days ago, and Brakovic is going to hang on to that back wheel just like he hung on to the back wheel of Danilo De Luca when De Luca took the stage and the golden jersey. Deja vu today.
Alexander Vinokourov 19th overall at the start of the day, 2 minutes 27 seconds behind. He lost most of that on one climb so far in the Vuelta, but here he's riding himself back into the history books. But this man here, Janez Brakovic, is absolutely superb. A very clever move. He's going to look like a solid leader at the end of the day, and the man who did most of the work, Valverde, Phil, has been caught out there.
Well, this is a new group forming. Hats off to Loosely. He's trying desperately to hang on to these riders. Here comes the troops round the corner now, and he's still cased up on, trying to put matters to rights. Well, there were enough of them in there, and yet they weren't able to control Vinokourov or indeed Brakovic. And there now it may well be that Valverde is going to be the next man to go from this group.
Well, Valverde's sitting there. He's still got teammates around him. He's still able to ask them to go to the front and set the tempo. Brakovic doesn't have that much of an advantage here. We're only looking at around about 100 metres. Vinokourov, he's not really worried about gaining time over anyone, Phil. I think all he wants to do right now is try and get himself a stage win.
And Brakovic thinks only of becoming the race leader. For how many days, who knows? He's got a chance to hang on tomorrow, that's for sure. He's ridden simply superbly today, and he's prepared to work now because he's free to fly. This is the chase group here, just struggling. Stein de Volder still here, just tucked in on the back. That's Gomez Marchand. He's done a good ride today, de Volder.
He's done a brilliant ride, de Volder. The man missing out, I think, for Team Discovery Channel here this afternoon is Tommy Danielson. We have no idea where he is, and he's the man who we expected to be a possible team leader for the Vuelta a España. There's the two leaders. I think they need to sit up a little fraction now because that's not much of an advantage.
Well, Asazi, all the cheers are for the Euskaltel rider, but he's not here, I'm afraid. There comes Gomez Marchand, I think, just sprinted off from that group. Just caught him in the shot.
Andrei Kashekin on the inside. Carlos Sastre right up alongside us here for Team CSC. And there's a lot of tired legs now as we see these consistent accelerations. It was Gomez Marchand, and he's actually nailed back with that acceleration the two riders who were in front.
It just shows you how quick those two are going, because they're all having these little counter-attacks back there, and they're only just inching closer. And it's still Brakovic and, in fact, Vinokourov, one by one. And it's Vinokourov now has gone to the front, checked over his shoulder to see who's coming back. Well, it is about 5 or 6 riders here. 3, 6, 7 of them. And Vinokourov realised, you remember, this is just like it was the other day with Kashekin chasing De Luca near the finish. He decided to lift the pace and not let them get on. I wonder if that's the winning move by Alexander.
Well, 1 kilometre to go now, and Alexander Vinokourov is ticking away. 201. He's 1,000 metres from the finish and just pulling back. Look at that tailwind. That will be a big advantage to him. But Gomez Marchand really wants this as well.
Well, what an incredible reversal here by Vinokourov after losing over 2 minutes. He's trying to gain at least a few seconds on the climb up to the finishing line. Here he is now, he's free as a bird, and this has been a real big morale booster here for Alexander Vinokourov. You know, he's had such a torrid year this year, one way and another, most of it not through his fault, and he's finishing up here now looking at a win in a race for the first time since he won stage 5 of the Tour of Castile Leon, and that wasn't far away from this area.
It certainly wasn't that far away from this area, but you can see even though we are inside the final kilometre, it's a nasty final kilometre. It's going to take these riders 3 to 4 minutes to get themselves across there. There's Iban Mayo, had a little flurry of attacks just a while ago. Andrei Kashekin, Stein de Volder, number 75, doing a brilliant ride. There's Tricky Beltran in the blue jersey as well. Luis Perez still riding at the front end of this group, though, in the white jersey. Alejandro Valverde now, Phil, has no teammates. Another acceleration coming here for Alexander Vinokourov. He wants this one.
Well, he's put Janis Brakovic back in that group, but Brakovic still riding second wheel in that chase group and not looking like a tired man at all. There he is, number 73. He's got Perez on his wheel. Now, this little group here has got 3 riders from Discovery Channel in. They're going to have themselves a nice, healthy overall lead in the team race by the end of this day. But I think it's going to happen for Alexander Vinokourov now. It'll be his first victory since March this year. There's a massive crowd up here making full use of that tailwind as he winds up towards the finish. And this is going to be a huge feeling of relief because he spent all of his time, really, since the Tour de France debacle, trying to find and put together a new team, and he went to his government in Kazakhstan and they came up with the answers. Here's the present coming back to his government because he's going to get the win. 200 metres to go now for Alexander Vinokourov as he turns up towards the finishing line. The old traditional grimace, we've seen it many times in the Tour de France at the foot of mountains.
Watch out, Valverde.
There's the reaction. Valverde, you're right, he's going to see if he can run him down inside to the finish, and that's a terrific sprint and there's no more power left in him. He's gone over the top of him. Alessandro Valverde has gone over the top of Alexander Vinokourov and he steals it on the line. Wow.
Well, that was an unbelievable acceleration. This man is pure class. Look at that. He never gave up. He never at one time thought he was not going to win this stage. It looks like Sastre comes across the line there, followed by Marchante Gomez. And there you can see the new leader of the race, Vinokourov. A little bit of a broken man there coming up, and I think he crossed the line there, filling about 6th place. But what a move that was by Alejandro Valverde. Sheer class.
Absolutely. The man who crossed the line in 4th place, though, as Stein de Volder comes in there, was Janich Brekovic, his teammate. He will be the new leader of the Tour. But wow, what a finish by Valverde. And sorry for building up Alexander Vinokourov there. He was snatched off him in sight of the finish. That was his 6th win of the year, by the way, for Valverde.
I tell you what, that really was snatched away by the scruff of the neck, that victory. It was it was a superbly timed acceleration, but did you see the speed that he went past Alexander Vinokourov? We'll be looking at riders, by the way, coming into the finish line here now for another 30 or 40 minutes.
Well, that's for sure, and there's some big time gains. Valverde, at the end of the day, hasn't gained much time, but he will leapfrog in the overall classification because many riders have lost time today. A bit further down the field now, another minute has slipped by.
Well, that's rider Hushovd coming in there. He's better known, really, Phil, as a mountain biker, so he's well up at the top here in the mountains. And there's Danilo De Luca.
And he's losing, what, 1 minute 20 at the moment, so he's well out of the race lead now. Brekovic converting his 4 seconds considerably into a very healthy overall lead, the biggest we've had since the start of the Tour, I think.
Well, although Danilo De Luca is losing himself the overall lead, he doesn't look too bad there. He's ridden, let's not forget, the last 10 or 12 kilometres at the front of this group on his own with no help at all, and still got a little bit of fluidity left in those legs of his. A brave move to try and keep in the golden jersey, but I think he's going to have to relinquish it on this occasion.
No doubt about it, and no doubt who's got it too. We started with Carlos Sastre, then we went to Thor Hushovd, then Danilo, and now it'll be Brekovic, the 4th different leader. And we're just over the first week completed now of the Vuelta España.
Almost 2 minutes, 1 minute and 57 seconds, but look at this. This is a brilliant performance. Rarely do you see an acceleration like that one. As Alejandro Valverde comes up to get himself the victory. It really was, Phil, pulled out of the bag, that one.
So the man who won Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège this year, now the champion of Spain, at least today, Alessandro Valverde, 4 seconds, there's the figure, over Carlos Sastre. Gomez Marchante Brekovic, 7 seconds back, but he'll convert his 4 seconds overnight into a golden jersey. Vinokourov 12 seconds back in 6th place, so he didn't lose too much time to his arch rivals on this occasion, and maybe he's climbing it back into this race, and there's plenty of mountains on the road ahead. It'd be interesting now to see the overall classification. And here we go. Brekovic is now the leader. Took him nearly 27 hours to get it, but he's only 22 and a half years of age for discovery. 5 seconds only ahead of Valverde, nothing at all. Sastre is 3rd. Now the favourites are firing, Paul. Probably in 2nd and 3rd overall.
All starting to move up. You can see Danilo De Luca from 1 down to 9. Iban Mayo is creeping into the top 10 now, but certainly it is the big names. And this is a name we didn't know very much about before the start of the Vuelta, but we'll certainly talk about him next year, I'm sure. Janich Brekovic.
Vinokourov, by the way, up to 10th. Just 2 days away from the first rest day, we're on to stage number 8 now, right up in the northeastern corner. This is the famous part of Galicia, and 1 or 2 riders, even like Oscar Pereira, would like to win here because this is where he comes from.
He certainly would. A fairly flat course, only one small 3rd category climb halfway through the course, and 181 kilometres. A nice day to defend the overall lead for Janich Brekovic.
Yes, a nice day to take it easy too, Paul, because tomorrow's stage has 6 mountains on it, so the riders aren't going to want to push the luck too much today, and it's a perfect day for the sprinters, although the last kilometre is not a routine run into the finish today.
Now the small circuit around the city, 8 kilometres the final circuit, and what a magnificent citadel we have in the very heart here of Lugo. You can see the main field stretched out into a very long line, and of course I think the sprinters will try and keep it together, although it's not really the ideal finish for a sprinter this afternoon. Maybe another chance for Alejandro Valverde.
And Brekovic, the leader, both the king of the mountains and the golden jersey, his first big coup as a young professional cyclist under what I think that was 3 kilometres to go, as the peloton now in very angry mood.
Well, this is what it looks like at the back end of the main field. Very precarious position to be. If you want to win a race like the Vuelta a España, Tour de France or Giro d'Italia, you have to ride in the top 15 to 20 places on the running towards the finish like this, because a cut in the main field could lose you 30 seconds for nothing at all.
Yes, and even when you're inside the last 3 kilometres, that rule doesn't apply. If the peloton splits out of pure effort, you will lose time. And we've still just got that few seconds separating Valverde, the next likely candidate for the leader's golden jersey, now right in there behind Brakovic. Bonuses on the line, of course. Oh, and it's in fact 4 kilometres to go.
Yep, just flicking around the outskirts of the citadel. There's the river in the very heart of Lugo. A very pretty old city, this, right up in the top western part of the peninsula. This is probably the most western part of the race before we start to head east and then back down towards the south. Liquigas out on the attack here. Look at this speed, 66, 60, 75 kilometres an hour.
That's Magnus Backstead for you.
Big rushing down towards the finish line.
And big Magnus there setting the pace, but he's had enough of that one. He's blown himself away now, and no doubt looking for Luca Paolini to try and win this stage. Could be tailor-made for him. As they race up, they've lost already one of their riders with a crash in poor old Charlie Wegelius. The split is there too.
Just talking about that split in the main field, there is a slight split there. These guys at the back, if they don't nail that back, they're going to lose themselves 15 or 20 seconds by the end of the day. Quick step on the front here, really ripping it up. It looks as if Gerolsteiner are also thinking about trying to get themselves. This is the sort of finish that would suit a man like David Rabelin.
Well, we haven't seen much of Paolo Bettini since his opening flurry on the first few days of the race, but he's on the quick-step squad. Of course, he wears his Italian national jersey, and the same for Gerolsteiner too. They're still looking for some reward for all of the hard work. They do have sprinters. Robert Foster probably the best one on the squad here.
Look at how long that main field is. They're absolutely hammering along here, but when they turn back into the town, the last kilometre actually, Phil, is rather difficult, slightly uphill, and may well give the advantage to somebody like Paolo Bettini, not necessarily a pure sprinter. I don't think it's a pure sprinter's finish this afternoon.
Well, the riders may not know the finish either, although the Spanish riders certainly will. This is a hotbed of cycling up here in Galicia. There's the peloton. As Paul says, they'll soon swing away from this fabulous highway and head up back into the town. They're now just a couple of kilometres. They've been on. It's an 8-kilometre circuit. They've done 6. They've 2 left to go. They'll just do that last kilometre as they approach the line. It's not a very good finish, actually, for a big peloton like this, but that's the way we're coming into town today.
So you can see the movement at the front end of the main field there. Everybody trying to control it there. The riders who've done their turns at the front for the team are slipping back. It's always a continuous motion at the front end of the main field. There's a Saunier Duval rider on the front. It actually doesn't look like David Miller's style on this occasion. It's a much punchier rider. You can see the team of Milram. Eric Zabel probably thinks he's got a chance this afternoon because they've got all the pale blue jerseys at the front as well.
Well, again, a lot of riders here already out of contention. They're just trying to hang on. At least they've healed the wound on the main highway as they now start to line up for the finish. No gaps in the peloton. There's the chaos down below with the roads closed, waiting for the arrival of the stage 8 of the Vuelta España. 2 days away now from the first rest day. Well, only one after this one's over from the first rest day, but tomorrow the mountains take us into that first rest day. There's the kilometre kite, and still a lot of riders trying to break this field up and break the spirit of the sprinters.
Well, Crédit Agricole now at the front trying to get their man to the front, Thor Hushovd. I don't think it's really a Thor Hushovd finish, but you never know how it's going to run out. There's a gap in the field now as we can see 2 riders moving off the front. Milram looking over their shoulder. Look, a little bit like Alessandro Pataki.
Well, Hushovd, of course, needs points. Any will do to keep him in the lead here. It could have been Pataki, but he's swung across now because he made the effort and it's all over. This is the little rise up that we've been talking about in this last kilometre. This is Luca Paolini who's gone here, and that's a typical finish for him, and that was why Magnus was trying to race down on the bottom road. Big effort there by Paolini.
Well, that's a good move. He's really hit them, and this may well be the surprise. He's got the explosive effort to stay off the front of a main field like this. The slight uphill part of the course as well will suit him a fraction. Look how powerful he is. Looks over his shoulders. He knows he's got the gap now, but it's a solo effort now. Don't look over your shoulder. Just keep going. Just think about concentrating. Paolo Bettini in the middle there in the Italian national champions jersey. He'll like this kind of finish, and there's a move that looks like Alexander Vinokourov.
It is Alexander Vinokourov who swung up the front of the race. He's not a sprinter, but he's taken full advantage here. He's doing a Valverde here because this is Vinokourov gone after Luca Paolini, and he's opened up the gap. He's got a Lamprey rider trying to home at the back of the Napolitano probably, but I wonder if the failure yesterday on a day we would not expect a victory from him is going to make it good today. Paolini trying to get onto him. That'd be Marzoli who's trying to run him down. It's all too late. Well, if at first you don't succeed, try the the next day, and that's a victory for Alejandro
Vinokourov.
We'll get him right one day.
Too many Alejandros and Alexanders in this race, that's all I can think. But you know, Phil, that really is the mettle of a man and a champion like Alexander Vinokourov. He got beaten dramatically yesterday, comes back out fighting again today, and gets the win on probably a kind of course that didn't really suit him.
And congratulations all round there for him there. That was from his teammate Andy Kashakin, and that was a terrific piece of riding. And it was all because of the uphill. Paolini might have thought he'd won that, but yesterday Vinokourov knew how it felt to be caught by a flyer on the line.
That's quite strange, actually, because it's almost a similar operation, but in reverse this time for Alexander Vinokourov. At this point, he looks over his shoulders, and he knew he got it. Good win.
So everything I told you yesterday about the stats of Vinokourov, replace and put it over the tape for today, because he's just got his first victory since March, and now he feels he's back in the big time. Yes, you, Alexander.
Yep, and just behind him, Paolo Bettini, consistently at the front end of the main field all the time. That was Uros Moon, by the way, coming across there for Team Phonak. I think he came across the line in about third place.
And Hushovd should have finished fourth there, and he did, which means a valuable point for him. He'll keep his quite a good lead he's got in that points competition. A good day to get some more points. Bettini slipping away at the end. He was in fifth place. The man who won, and he got a second time gap. He's nudging closer to the leaderboard. Eric Zabel was there. Pataki blew himself away too early on the climb. David Rebellin for Gerolsteiner completing the top 10. But Alexander Vinokourov back in the big time. Now he can look at his government with pride, because he just got them a stage win here for the capital of his country, Kazakhstan.
And shouldn't do anything at all in the overall classification, because still Janez Brakovic at the top with a 5-second advantage over Alejandro Valverde.
He lost a couple of seconds out on the highway today of his lead to Valverde with a bonus time, but 5's good enough to keep him in the golden jersey. All smiles for a second day.